U.S. President Donald Trump has announced tonight he is terminating trade talks with Canada, blaming an anti-tariff ad by Ontario for the reason. Trump posted this message on social media saying the Ronald Reagan Foundation has just announced that Canada has fraudulently used an advertisement which is fake, featuring Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs. The ad was for $75,000. They only did this to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts. Tariffs are very important to the national security and economy of the USA. Based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President DJT.
Trump just made it official. He's pulling the plug on trade talks with Canada. But let's be honest, Mark Carney saw this coming long before Trump hit post. Carney had already begun steering Canada toward a future beyond America's grip, one built on our own strength, our own industries, and our own alliances. So while Trump claims he's ending things, in reality, Canada ended this dependency first. With Carney and China forging new trade paths, this isn't a setback. It's the moment Canada finally stands tall, confident, and ready to lead on its own terms. Trump has done it again. Tonight, he officially terminated all trade talks with Canada, blaming a so-called fake Ontario ad that featured Ronald Reagan criticizing tariffs. According to Trump, the ad was an attempt to interfere with U.S. court decisions. Let's be honest, this isn't about an ad. This is Trump being Trump, unpredictable, emotional, and desperate to look tough before his base. And while Washington sees this as a punishment, Canada should see it for what it truly is, an opportunity. Because here's the reality. Canada has already been quietly preparing for this moment. The government knew the day would come when relying on the U.S. economy was no longer sustainable. Trade diversification isn't a slogan anymore. It's strategy in motion. Finance Minister Anand was just in China meeting senior trade officials, and discussions are already underway about strengthening Canadian exports across Asia. These are not random trips. They're the start of a deliberate pivot, one that looks beyond the United States and toward the fastest growing markets in the world.
This decades-long process of an ever closer economic relationship with the United States is now over.
And guess who saw it coming long before today? Mark Carney. Just one day ago, he said, "This decades-long process of an ever closer economic relationship with the United States is now over." He was right. The American relationship was once our greatest strength, but under Trump's politics, it's become a liability. While Trump plays power games with tariffs and tantrums, Carney and his team are building a future where Canada isn't waiting for permission to grow. So, while the White House scrambles to justify another self-inflicted wound, Canada moves forward. We don't need to beg for trade access when there's an entire continent, Asia, ready to do business. Trump may think he's isolating Canada, but in reality, he's freeing it. This is a turning point, the end of dependence and the start of independence. And if there's one lesson tonight, it's that Canada doesn't need Trump's approval to succeed. It just needs to keep doing exactly what Carney started, looking forward, not south.
Ashley, can you take us through precisely what Trump is saying tonight?
Adrian, Donald Trump declaring on social media that he's officially called off trade talks with Canada. It's over an advertisement from Ontario's government that's been playing on American networks. Ontario's premier recently launched the $75 million anti-tariff campaign using a video with the voice of former President Ronald Reagan. It's from his famous address in 1987. And in the video, Reagan is heard saying high tariffs lead to retaliation by foreign countries and trigger fierce trade wars. Trump wrote on Truth Social that the Ronald Reagan Foundation said it's fraudulently used. The foundation posted online that the ad misrepresents the president's radio address, and Ontario didn't have permission to use it. Trump also went on to write how important he says tariffs are to his country's economy and said, quote, based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated.
So here we go again. Trump has slammed the brakes on trade talks with Canada, all because of a $75 million Ontario ad that dared to quote Ronald Reagan. Yes, you heard that right. The man who worships Reagan's legacy is furious because Reagan's own words. words warning that high tariffs lead to retaliation, and trade wars were used to remind Americans what real leadership once sounded like. Instead of addressing the message, Trump's throwing a tantrum over the messenger. He's calling it fraudulent, egregious, and now claims that tariffs, the same failed economic tool that once triggered the Great Depression, are crucial to U.S. security. You can't make this up. Let's be clear. This isn't about Reagan, and it's not about tariffs. This is Trump doing what Trump does best, turning insecurity into policy. The U.S. is raising tariffs faster than any major economy in the world. It's isolationism disguised as patriotism. And while Trump rants on Truth Social, Canada's already moved on. Ottawa isn't waiting for Washington's approval anymore. Finance Minister Anand just wrapped a major visit to China, not for photo ops, but for trade. The groundwork for a new era of Canadian diplomacy is being laid quietly but firmly. Canada's building connections with economies that actually want to collaborate, innovate, and grow together. This is part of a bigger strategy, one that Mark Carney has been articulating for months. Remember when Carney said, "The world is more dangerous and divided. The U.S. has fundamentally changed its approach to trade. This isn't a smooth transition. It's a rupture." He called it exactly as it is. This isn't just another hiccup. It's the end of an era.
We're re-engaging with global giants India and China while we deepen our partnerships with our traditional allies. And to build on this momentum, I'm going to put it in context. Our goal for Canada is to double our non-U.S. exports over the course of the next decade, generating more than $300 billion more in trade, and that's new orders for Canadian resources, technologies, and expertise.
And that's precisely why Carney's vision matters more than ever. Under his leadership, Canada isn't just reacting, it's repositioning. Our trade deals with the UAE in AI, Europe in defense, and Germany in critical minerals are proof of that. These aren't symbolic gestures. They're the building blocks of a more independent, globally respected Canada. While Trump's America is busy picking fights, Carney's Canada is busy building bridges. Let's not pretend this trade freeze is some tragedy. It's a wake-up call and, frankly, a blessing in disguise. For decades, we've lived in the shadow of U.S. politics. Every policy shift, every tariff threat, every election cycle in Washington could shake our economy. That's no way to live as a sovereign nation. Carney gets that. He's not waiting for the next Truth Social post to dictate Canada's direction tonight as Trump pounds his chest about tariffs and national security. Carney is showing what real leadership looks like. Calm, calculated, and forward-looking. He's not picking fights, he's building futures. And while Trump's America turns inward, Canada is expanding outward to Asia, to Europe, to new frontiers of technology and trade. This is what global strategy looks like.
The world is more dangerous and divided. The U.S., as we all know, has fundamentally changed its approach to trade. It's raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. And the scale and the speed of these developments are not part of a smooth transition, they're a rupture. And they mean that our economic strategy needs to change dramatically.
So let Trump have his outrage. Let him cling to his tariff wars and social media posts. Canada doesn't need to chase a partner who keeps slamming the door, because under Carney, we've already started walking through another one that opens to the rest of the world. Companies like Stellantis want to move some of its operations to the U.S. Let them, because Carney doesn't lose sleep over companies chasing short-term political deals south of the border. His focus isn't on pleasing American boardrooms, it's on empowering Canadian workers. He's made it clear, Canada will build what Canada needs right here at home. From aerospace and shipbuilding to steel, aluminum, and lumber, the goal is simple. Strengthen our industries, support our people, and stop depending on others for what we already produce better.
With our new Defense Investment Agency, we will make sure we build more of our security and defense capabilities here at home, creating new careers in aerospace and shipbuilding and cyber and AI for Canadian engineers, technicians, and scientists. It's the same thing in steel. Consider that while 80% of the steel that Europe buys is manufactured in Europe, 75% of the steel that the U.S. buys is manufactured in the U.S. Only 40% of the steel that we use is made here. That doesn't make sense. Not when we have the people, the resources, and the companies to build right here in Canada. So our upcoming budget will move forward with our Buy Canadian policy, prioritizing Canadian steel, aluminum, lumber, manufactured good, and technology for Canadian projects.
Carney's Buy Canadian policy is the bold shift this country needed. It ensures every new home, bridge, and defense contract fuels Canadian jobs, not American factories. Think about that. When the government orders a fleet of ships, that's not money leaving the country. That's paychecks for welders in Street Johns, engineers in Ontario, and technicians in Alberta. These aren't slogans. These are livelihoods being rebuilt on a foundation of Canadian strength. And here's the part that Washington doesn't want to hear. Canada doesn't need to beg for inclusion anymore. Carney understands what Trump never will. You can't bully a nation that stands on its own 2 feet. That's why Canada is expanding its trade footprint across Asia. China is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And right now, our ministers are on the ground in Beijing negotiating the next phase of trade collaboration. It's about clean tech, minerals, and advanced manufacturing sectors that will define the next generation of global power. Asia isn't just a backup plan, it's the future. From India to South Korea, markets are opening and Canada is showing up, ready to lead, not follow. The upcoming trade agreements in clean energy and technology will put Canadian innovation on the world stage, not as an appendage to the U.S., but as a partner of equals. Carney sees this clearly. Every time Trump slams the door, another one opens eastward. While Trump talks about tariffs like it's 1,930, Carney is investing in modern industries that actually matter in 2025. The message to Canadians is clear. Our prosperity no longer depends on political tantrums in Washington. We have the people, the skills, and the resources. Stellantis leaving isn't a setback. It's a reminder that Canada's strength doesn't come from who stays, but from who's ready to build. And under Carney, we're done waiting for permission. We're building the future ourselves. Trump's tantrums may dominate headlines, but Carney is quietly reshaping Canada's destiny. This is no longer about chasing American approval. It's about building a nation that stands firm on its own production, talent, and innovation. With trade doors opening across Asia and Canadian-made industries rising, our future is no longer tied to Washington's moods. Carney's message is crystal clear. Canada will lead, not follow. The age of dependence is over. This is our era of independence, strength, and vision, and no one, not even Donald Trump, can stop what Canada is becoming.